time has come to start the meeting for the suspension of the UK nuclear power station's construction project for Hitachi Limited. Thank you very much for attending this meeting despite your very busy schedules. First of all, I would like to introduce the speakers for today. Toshiaki Higashihara, President and CEO. I would like to ask Mr. Higashihara to make his comments. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending this meeting despite your busy schedules. I would like to report that at the Board of Directors meeting held today, we decided to suspend our new nuclear power station project in the UK. Since Hitachi acquired Horizon Nuclear Power Limited in 2012, we have been making utmost efforts to supply clean energy which does not emit CO2 by constructing nuclear power stations with 2 units of ABWR, Advanced Boiling Water Reactor, which complies with the UK regulations and cost requirements. The reactor, which has an extensive construction and operation track record in Japan. In 2017, ABWR for UK was technologically certified by receiving GDA Generic Design Assessment approval from the UK Regulatory Authority. In 2018, we have officially held discussions with the UK government over the establishing the financial structure. We are extremely grateful for the UK government's various supports and proposals and the Japanese government's cooperation during this time. However, Hitachi has decided to suspend the project from the viewpoint of its economic rationality as a private enterprise, as it is now clear that more time than anticipated is needed to reach an agreement with the UK government. As a result of this decision, we plan to revise our full-year consolidated business forecast for fiscal 2018, as described in the news release. However, we judged that by postponing the decision, we would rack up further project costs. Therefore, we decided to suspend the project early on in 2019 to avoid carrying over further risks into the future. In the meantime, I believe that through the various growth initiatives implemented to date, Hitachi as a whole has gained the strength to steadily generate profits. We are making our best efforts to achieve the 8% adjusted operating income ratio target under the 2018 Midterm Management Plan as promised. At present, we expect to be able to maintain a positive net income even after recording the latest costs, and our continued financial soundness is also ensured. We are therefore going ahead as planned with investment for future growth in the social innovation business, including the acquisition of the power grids business of ABB announced earlier. Regarding dividends, the final decision will be made by a resolution of the Board of Directors at the time of the statement of financial results for the year ending March 31st, 2019. However, we intend to exclude the impact of the Horizon project impairment. Hitachi will continue accelerating initiatives for further growth, including the next midterm management plan that is currently being drawn up. I would like to ask for your continued support going forward. With this, I would like to end my opening remarks. We would now like to move to Q&A. We will also have Toshikazu Nishino, Executive Vice President and Executive Officer, as well as Mitsuaki Nishiyama, Senior Vice President and Executive Officer, CFO, to respond to questions. The floor is now open for questions. We will take one question each. The floor is now open. Question. First of all, what is the reason for the suspension of the project? The explanation was provided that time will be required to reach agreement. But regarding the financing from the private sector, inclusive of utilities, have this also been a factor for the suspension? Answer. The negotiating party for us is the UK government. Therefore, the economic rationality that we have been pursuing is, as a private sector company, by pursuing this project, so we must be able to obtain appropriate level of profits. And we must also take the horizon off the balance sheet. It has to be separated in the balance sheet. Furthermore, we had to, the 300 billion will be the impairment to be posted. And therefore, we want to limit the investment amount to this level. That is the reason why we have decided to suspend at this time. Question. Can we understand that the lack of financing was also the issue? Answer. Our negotiating party is the UK government. The UK government has been making efforts in terms of financing, and we appreciate the effort of the UK government. However, in reality, so far, financing scheme has not been established. Based on this, we cannot defer the decision-making any longer, because the financing scheme with economic rationality cannot be established yet. That is the reason why we have decided to suspend. Now, I understand that 2 trillion and 3 trillion is because of the safety measures in terms of cost overrun. Answer. The amount is still an estimate. I understand the reporting that has been made, but with further evaluation going forward, the financial amount will be decided. Therefore, it isn't as if we have disclosed those numbers that you've stated. Question, are you going to make contribution to the UK energy sector going forward? Answer. ABB, a power grid business, has been acquired. The UK is focused on wind power generation. Therefore, in terms of the power grid, we can provide the support to the UK. In this direction, we will continue our efforts going forward.
Question. My question is that at the moment, as you have mentioned, the finance scheme, the British government, with regards to financing, they're supposed to establish the scheme and provide to Hitachi. Is that the meaning of finance scheme? So what was your assumption in more specific terms? Answer. So there is a counterparty, so I cannot talk about the details. But from our position, the development investment that we have paid, if we continue with that, to prepare for the construction, further cost will be required. And as a private enterprise, Hitachi, there's a limit on how much cost we can bear. So we discussed that we want them to consider the cost burden that we have to bear. And as for the business scheme, there is a strike price that is to be decided. And there is a fixed amount, fixed price to purchase the power. We wanted to have the whole scheme considered. I talked about economic rationality, and one point is that the scheme should be off balance, and this should not exceed the scope of investment as a private enterprise, and there must be appropriate profit. Is it possible to have such a finance scheme? We discuss about these 3 points. Question related to that. Under the current British administration, they are facing Brexit, and I think the government is facing difficulties. So to provide such a finance scheme, since the government is unstable situation, there are risks that the administration might change. So the current situation of the British government, is that affecting your decision? Answer. These decisions that we have made and the current turmoil related to Brexit are totally unrelated. That is not influencing our decision. Question. I have one more question. In acquiring Horizon, 88.9 billion yen was investment, and 300 billion is the loss. So there is a gap between the two. So in what areas did the loss generate? Answer. 88.9 billion was the amount when we acquired in 2012. After that, as I have mentioned, the British ABWR, to develop the British type ABWR, engineering cost was necessary, which is about 280 billion. So there is a development cost and acquisition cost included, which is about 280 billion. And for the minimum maintenance required going forward would be 20 billion. So in total, we assumed about 300 billion.
Question. I have 2 questions, one by one. You said that this is going to be suspended. What is the meaning of suspension? Please clarify. Is there a possibility that it will be revived going forward? If that is the case, what will be the conditions allowing the resumption of the project? Even in the absence of revival, if it's going to be a permanent withdrawal, there is a possibility of liquidation of Horizon. Please comment. Answer. Regarding the meaning of suspension, that means that we will not make incremental investments. As a project, we must make sure there is reasonable returns. We must make the project off balance sheet, and 280 billion has been invested, but we do not want to increase this further. And this is the criteria for the rationality. If this is overcome and a new scheme can be presented by the UK government, if that is the case, we may lift the suspension. It may be revived. However, the time frame is not clear for this to happen. Therefore, we will maintain Horizon in a minimum organization in terms of maintenance. We shall continue in that regard. But if it is to be resumed, obviously it will depend on the time frame, but further cost and time will be required. Therefore, it is to be resumed several years down the road. On a zero base, we have to consider the process as well as the cost required. It will have to be revisited. Question: you are saying that this is going to end, and if it is to be resumed, it will be from scratch. Answer: it is to be considered as investment. Question: you said that you have reached a limit in terms of investment amount acceptable by a private enterprise. And what about thermal power as well? And there is a downward revision that has been made, and from next fiscal year, new plan will be introduced. In terms of corporate management, what is your intention in this regard? What is the current phase? Answer to this question: we have to make a further breakthrough. In terms of project, it is proceeding very well. And by 2020, in the middle of 2020s, it is likely that the project outlook will be clear. But we have to also discuss the sharing of the cost. And currently, we are in the stage of arbitration. Therefore, I cannot divulge the content thereof. But in terms of the cost to be incurred, we have more clarity. That is all I can say. Thank you.
Question. Now, with this, the Turkish project, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, is also facing difficulties. So, in Japan and overseas, there are no new constructions. Then, in Japan, nuclear technology and human resources, how would these be maintained? What are the future prospects? And people often say that the manufacturers should be integrated. So what are your views about it? Answer: I believe that is a very important issue. The Horizon project being suspended, then how much nuclear human resources should be secured? In what way? That is very important. And I believe that's a very important issue for us. So at an early stage, we hope we can establish a direction. And in Japan, restart of nuclear power plants and decommissioning are areas that a lot of work is required. Nuclear power plants construction, to plan for it and to design and to proceed, the upstream human resources will be in shortage. And Horizon project was a way of breaking through, but now, as we decided to suspend, human resources issues will come up again. And as you have mentioned, together with other Japanese manufacturers, how should we secure human resources? I think there must be more discussions about it. But looking at the situation in Japan for nuclear power generation, we are in a situation which we are not yet able to make positive views about nuclear power generation. So nuclear power generation issue is not just a matter of restart of the operations, but in terms of stable supply of energy or energy security, safety of power generation and environmental issues like CO2, the question of supply and demand. What is the best mix of energy? I think that including the Japanese people, we should have a nationwide discussion about it. And based on that, I hope we could have discussions on what about the engineers. Question. So, and about integration, what are your views about it? Answer. Many people talk about integration, but there's nothing decided yet.
Next question, please. Question. I have two short questions. You said that on a zero basis, the plan could be revisited. Why do you not want to withdraw completely? Because having the organization remain will mean there could be risk, there could be extra cost. Answer to the UK government. We have conveyed to them that we are going to suspend the investment, but the door is still open. And through negotiations going forward, we will determine the direction going forward. Therefore, at this juncture, it is a suspension. We have to consider the position of the counterparty as well. Therefore, we are not withdrawing. That is not what we are conveying today. Question. Depending on the negotiations with the UK government, there is possibility of a complete withdrawal. Answer. It will depend on the direction for the negotiation. That is one possibility. Question. When will it be decided? Answer. Will depend on the negotiation. We are not going to set a time frame. That will be very difficult to do. In the appropriate time frame, we will make a decision based on economic rationality. Question. So there is no deadline. Answer. There is no deadline yet. Question. You have made the acquisition in 2012, and significant loss will be incurred, and it has become stranded. As management, where was the mistake made? What lessons have you learned? Answer. In 2012, we have made the acquisition of Horizon. In 2013, EDF Hinkley Point strike price was 92.5 pounds per megawatt hour. I cannot state the name, but there were some inquiries regarding investment. Therefore, we felt that this will be a viable business project for us. That is the reason why we've been pursuing this. And in 2017, we have received the GDA, and therefore the design was approved, and that is when we started negotiation. At that time, compared to 2012 and 2013 to 2018, in terms of wind power generation, strike price was around 70 pounds plus. Therefore, the environment has changed significantly in the 2 to 3 years that I have mentioned. On the part of management, we have set milestones, and we have acquired the GDA. And we are incurring a loss this time. But going forward, if the asset can be reutilized, we will be able to post a profit once again. Therefore, we have to set milestones. And therefore, up until 2017, we pursued the approval of the GDA. And from 2018, inclusive of financing, there was full-fledged negotiations taking place. But the situation has changed significantly over time. Therefore, in each milestone, management decision will be made. In 2018, on many occasions, we have evaluated the progress. We have discussed the possibility of suspension at that time frame as well. Therefore, at 2019 today, to suspend the project is not a mistake made by management. And it is true that there is a 300 billion loss incurred. This is very significant. But we have been making timely decision-making, dealing with the changing environment. And the management has made a decision based on corporate governance. Appropriate measures have been made. Question. So you have been coping with the changing environment. The market for nuclear power has been shrinking. Does that mean that your power system business will decline going forward? Answer, no, that is not the case. As a private sector company, economic rationality is very important. So we have made a decision on the Horizon project. And therefore, it isn't as if we have made economic rational decision in terms of nuclear power plant business overall. And I think there should be a very comprehensive discussion made, inclusive of Japanese people. And the feasibility of energy should be subject to discussion. And in that context, we should decide the direction for nuclear power generation going forward. Question? And so you will be considering the possibilities going forward? We will be also considering nuclear power plant construction as well as decommissioning of nuclear power plants as well.
Question. I have a few questions. My first question is that the amount of 300 billion of loss is very large. If it was better if there were not such losses, but the sunk cost of 300 billion, they are posted as loss, and from the media's point of view, for instance, Chairman Nakanishi at Keidanren, and considering the government's nuclear policy, no matter how much Hitachi says you make a judgment based on economic rationality, there are concerns that you may not be able to make the decision of withdrawing. But you were able to make that decision, and why is it? And what were discussions at the board meetings that you had today? There were agreements and objections? As for the content of the board meeting, I cannot disclose the details, but the judgment of suspension was a result of agreement at the board meeting. So it's not a matter of one individual or some outside organization. As a private sector company, Hitachi's board meeting, this decision was made. So it doesn't mean that there would be any pressure from outside and that we would be tied, depriving us from making decisions. That is not the case. So, a question. As you have mentioned in the previous question, there were milestones. But weren't you able to make the decision of withdrawing earlier? And I understand you were able to make such decisions, but it is 2019, the original date that you had decided. Why is it? Answer. GDA, the generic design assessment, unless we get this approval, everything would be in the middle of a way. We would not be able to keep the assets because we got the GDA. As the British ABWR, there will be asset value. It's not subject to impairment loss, but in the future, if a British ABWR is revived, then this will be an asset. So we believe that we had to follow the milestone. And after that, we move to the decision based on the financing scheme. Question. So, as a result of a financing scheme, you tried many ways, but recently you found out that it was not possible. Answer. Yes. Question. With regards to integration, you mentioned that it has been discussed in many places, but there's nothing decided. Of course, it's not decided, but it is also true that many people talk about it, and some people recognize it. In general terms, am I right to understand that you are not denying the necessity? Answer. Including securing human resources. If there are such talks, I would like to discuss about it. Question. I think that is something in common. Integration, consolidation is something that has been discussed for the last 10 years. But why is it that the discussion is not proceeding? What are the issues that should be cleared to be able to talk about it? Answer. That is up to the intention of each manufacturer, so there's nothing I can say about it. As Hitachi, or as my view, to secure human resources in the future, to improve construction efficiency, I believe there must be more discussions about it. But I cannot say anything about the views of other manufacturers.
Next question, please. Question. I have 2 questions. So, what I would like to ask is, as one private sector company, Hitachi, what is the risk of Hitachi pursuing a nuclear power plant business? Has it been increasing in terms of risk? You said that there is still enthusiasm going forward, but what will be the scope of your business going forward? Answer. Regarding the UK Horizon project, we are going to suspend the project. Therefore, for the coming several years, we will be focused on restart of nuclear power plants in Japan, as well as decommissioning. And through the negotiations with the UK government, we shall consider what kind of financing schemes will be brought to bear. But for the time being, we will be focused on the domestic business. Question. I have a in terms of nuclear power plant technology globally, China and Russia are emerging, and UK has decided Hitachi to be partners with. That means that there is high expectations regarding nuclear power plant technology of Japan, but there is public opinion in Japan as well. On the part of Hitachi, how will you maintain the global class technology in nuclear power plant technology going forward? Answer. So GDA has been approved in several years. This is because our track record has been evaluated very highly. Therefore, our technology is evaluated very highly. But it's a project that takes 50 years, inclusive of construction. For a long-term project, how the financing scheme can be established is a separate discussion to be had. But in terms of technology, we have been evaluated very highly. And we have assumed to have world-class technology. Question. It's a project that will span over decades. On the part of Hitachi as a private sector company, if you were to pursue such a project, whether it be in Japan or overseas, inclusive financing, the involvement of the government in the absence of public schemes, would it be impossible for private sectors to pursue such a project, or will it depend on conditions? Answer. The Japanese nuclear power generation was established based on the utilities' strong base, but Horizon is different because they have not been pursuing the power generation business. Therefore, we had to establish a financing scheme from zero, from scratch, which was more challenging for us.
Question. I have two questions. So I think you communicated a decision of suspension to the British government. What is their reaction? And secondly, in the future for Horizon, you said you would consider withdrawal. So would you consider selling or liquidating Horizon? Answer. With regards to the British government in making a decision of suspension, I understand we have received their understanding about it. Until now, we had very sincere discussions and proposals about financing scheme from the British government, and we had discussions so far. So this is not matching the economic rationality of a private sector company, and I think they understood the reason. As for selling Horizon, we will consider the timing, and if it is necessary, we would consider the selling as one of the possibilities.
We would like to ask you to contain your questions to one each. Next question, please. A question. Regarding nuclear power generation, after 2011, there have been many cases of failures, even though projects have been pursued, whether it be Westinghouse or Bechtel in this project has withdrawn. So it seems that in pursuing projects, economic rationality for nuclear power business as an industry is not successful by any private sector companies. What is the bottleneck you have identified? And in the time frame of 10 years and 20 years, what is the future viability of the nuclear power plant industry? What is the challenge? What is the difficulty in this area? Answer. For the projects that you have mentioned, it is not. It was challenged not only just for one reason. In the case of Horizon project, in terms of design as well as approval, we have completed the process. And in going into the construction process, we were not able to obtain the financing scheme in place. There are also other projects where incremental cost was incurred in the construction phase. So the reasons differ from one project to another. But the significant cost is incurred over a long period of time. That is common to all the projects. Several trillions of yen. How this significant amount can be secured and how it can be allocated to the project process, the scheme thereof, will be the most significant challenge. Question. In establishing the financing scheme, were there technical issues that you faced? Answer. Regarding nuclear power plant technology, there were no major problems. Question. From the equity market, governance is being mentioned. So it was a high-risk project, but your company has continued to pursue this project. And this is the final result of this project. You said that you cannot talk about what was discussed in the board meeting, but in terms of governance, you said that the final decision will be made in 2019. Why could you not expedite the decision making? Why did it come to this juncture to make the decision? Answer. At the 2018, the financing model was being discussed, and during this process, I cannot talk about the specific timing, but we have set a milestone of when to suspend if a financing scheme was not made available. The original plan was within 2019, a decision will be made. That was the original plan. However, we felt that the decision must be expedited, and that is the reason why we have expedited the decision to the very early months of 2019. So we have set milestones for suspension. Phase gate have been set beforehand, and according to the governance rules, we have come to the decision of suspension at January of 2019. Question. In terms of your governance scheme, we would like to have been privy to that. I know that. Answer. We have to consider the counterparty. We cannot disclose such information. It was impossible for us to disclose such information.
Question. You said that for meanwhile you will focus on domestic nuclear power plants. Other countries, excluding the UK, do you have any plans for nuclear power plants? Do you mean that you don't have any intention considering other countries? Answer. At the moment, we are not considering accelerating our process. Question. Plans of constructing nuclear power plants overseas. What are the difficulties compared to Japan? Answer. For Japan, as I have been saying, the power utilities have a very strong leadership in leading constructions, but in foreign countries, manufacturers and consortium organizations would be leading the project in many cases. So that is a major difference in terms of project management.
Question. Regarding nuclear power plant business, please don't talk about the future outlook going forward. Domestically, it's a restart and decommissioning will be your major focus, according to what you have said. There could be new builds as well. In terms of new builds, what about new reactor development? Answer. If you're talking about new reactors, there is SMR, Small Modular Regulator Reactor. So SMR is being developed, but this will also incur cost. Therefore, how we can collaborate with other companies will have to be considered. And we are in the process of considering the development of such technologies. Questions, are you making progress yet? Answer. With GE Hitachi, we have established a joint venture company. And in that entity, we are making progress in terms of development.
Question. I have 3 brief questions. You said suspension and you consulted with the British government, and you said you wanted to wait for their financing review. And the British government can make loans but cannot provide investments, but it seems to be tough for private sectors also to make investments. And we don't know what will be the price to purchase. And under such a situation, from your position, it might be difficult to disclose the details, but as Hitachi, what are the changes necessary to be able to expect a restart of developments? Answer. I mentioned 3 points. One is that as a business, as a project, the project must be profitable. And number 2, Horizon project is owned 100% by Hitachi, and it must be off balance sheet, at least below 50% to be excluded from consolidation. And number 3, we made a 200 billion investment for development. If you are to proceed furthermore, we must order some reactor vessels in advance, or site license, the Wilfer site construction license must be acquired. So this will require further addition of cost. So before making investment decisions, the economic rationality must be considered, the 3 points I mentioned. Instead of the manufacturer bearing all the investment costs within the finance scheme, the scheme must be able to absorb those costs. Otherwise, it's not possible to move to the construction stage. Question. Within the finance scheme, what was the factor that would be necessary for you? Answer. To make it off balance sheet. By doing so, there will be more investors to be able to make decisions, and as a project, it will become attractive. So whether it is possible to put off balance or not is a question. Question. At the moment, you are considering possibilities of withdrawal or to restart. Which has the larger possibility? Answer. It's a very difficult question. We will be discussing with the UK government to decide our direction. So it's up to negotiations as to which side we are going to move. A question. So you are going to minimize the size of Horizon or consider sales and reduce the human resources? Do you have any time frame? Answer. We want to be able to do so as soon as possible, because we want to minimize cost. And in parallel, we want to move forward with the negotiations. Question. So the possibility of selling is also open. Is there any proposal you're prepared to discuss? Answer. Yes.
Next question, please. Question. You have been mentioning that you will be focused on decommissioning as well as other domestic business. Regarding decommissioning, this is something that will take decades, but that will be the end of it. And new builds are not being approved by the government yet. So it seems that the business lacks a future. Against this backdrop, what can be pursued by a private sector company? Answer. We have been involved in nuclear power plant business for a very long time. So restart as well as decommissioning work will be a major focus for us. But beyond that, we want to, in order to develop the nuclear power business going forward, we have to have discussions with the Japanese people in terms of the environment as well as a stable supply of power as well. and what is the possibility of renewable energies, what can be supplemented by nuclear power plant, and using thermal power, which will emit CO2. So there is more discussions to be had in this area in deciding the direction for a nuclear power plant business going forward, because we are committed to resolving the social issues. Question regarding, and there is some issues regarding safety after 3/11. That is the reason why municipal governments are not giving the green light. How can you resolve this? Answer. You talked about S. Energy security is also very important. We have to consider this. Renewable energies are not going to suffice. If it can cover all our energy needs, nuclear power plants may not be necessary. But my personal view is that there is a limit to renewable energies power generation. Therefore, with 3/11, we have learned lessons, and a safer nuclear power plant should be developed. And with the restart of nuclear power plants that have been suspended, we can provide power at lower price. That is the direction that should be pursued.
A question. You mentioned that so you have set the phase gates and set the milestone until today, and am I right in understanding that that was communicated also to the UK government? Answer: yes. We are proceeding on discussions talking about it. Question: unless you get the GDA, you cannot keep the asset, and you made an impairment now, but does it mean that as there will be some off-balance sheet asset remaining? Answer: impairment means that about 280 billion is not a cash out. 20 billion may be the cash out, but that must be set more clear. If there's someone who wants to have a GDA right in the future, this will lead to value, and on that occasion we can recognize a profit. At the moment, there is no counterparty for that now, so this was put into zero as an impairment. But in the future, if there's anyone who would like to buy, then if you can sell, this will create value, and that will lead to profit. But if we don't sell GDA, if there's nothing, then all we can do is to discard with the assets. Question: so that is something that could be sold at a price below 300 billion? Answer: I don't know. It depends on who is buying. Question: what's the breakdown of impairment? 88.9 billion of Horizon equity and the development cost? Answer: yes. And question: you said you need a discussion among all the people. As a result of a discussion, if a discussion conclusion was not something that you expected, do you mean that you will have to follow that discussion? Answer: even without having the discussion, there's no meaning in talking about what would be the conclusion. There must be discussions of pros and cons. And we have to listen to views from many different people. There's no meaning making judgment based on assumptions. Question: do you mean discussion within the Japanese people? Answer: yes, there must be discussions with the Japanese people and also globally, the organizations like IEA to discuss about this subject.
We will take the last question now. Question. You have mentioned that the project will be taken off balance. Regarding ABWR, TEPCO, Chubu Power Company's names have been floated. How much have you discussed this? Are you talking about the investment by power utilities? Answer. We have explained the status of the project, but I have never requested investment to be made by the utilities. So, on the part of Hitachi, our counterparty is the UK government in terms of negotiations. So the financing scheme was discussed with the UK government accordingly. But to the Japanese power utilities, we are explaining the status of the project of Horizon, but I have never requested any investment from them. Question. Private sector companies to pursue nuclear power plant business overseas seems very difficult. But the government is still trying to promote this export. What do you think of the government's stance? Answer. We don't know what kind of nuclear power plant export will be possible, but if conditions are right going forward, we will consider such a project. But for the time being, such projects have not come to the fore. And therefore, there is nothing for me to say at this point in time. With this, we would like to bring this meeting to a close. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much for staying with us until very late at night. Thank you.